Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. I have a very special update. We are going to be breaking down some of my favorite projects across all of the different chains in crypto. These are going to be projects that I'm currently watching right now that I think are going to be breaking out in a big way. I believe that these are going to be providing some of the bigger gains going over this next cycle, and these are all very strong fundamentally strong projects with a real value proposition going into the bull run. With 2 years left, I believe now is the most prime opportunity we can cover altcoins, talk about specific narratives behind them, and analyze what their price structure is showing, because a lot of these are showing we're about to see significant upside potential very soon. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, here we are to start off today's video, and we are going to be starting out with FrackShares. This is going to be a layer 2 that most people don't really talk about, and it's mainly because it's a layer 2 that's around stablecoins. So there's a little bit of legality, questions. Are we going to be able to... There's a lot of legalities when it comes to stablecoins, but when the Fed came out and actually okayed them earlier last year, I do think that was kind of where we're going to end up seeing a lot more value coming into these long term. Now, most people aren't talking about this, but as we're seeing a lot of these layer 2s blowing up, I don't think that we should ignore the price structure that we're seeing, because this one has a very obvious bottom formation. We went through a few months, well, probably around 6 months, I wouldn't be surprised, quite a long period of time that we spent just inside of this range right here, the better half of a year. And then we ended up making this first little higher high, but we've pretty much just came back down and did another example of that rounded bottom. It's just a bigger version of that. For the most part, we've been here for, a little over 300 days. So we have back-to-back kind of these big rounded bottom formations. And the only impulse that we have down in here is just this beginning move, this 5-wave impulse to the upside. And then we saw this big ABC correction all the way back down. This is still a higher high, so I do believe we're getting ready for a much bigger move coming very soon. So if we're looking at a minimum target for our wave 3, I believe that takes us all the way up to about $21. And from where we're at right now, assuming we hold support right here, you'd be looking at a little over 1.3x. And then for us to come all the way up to the 2618, which is something that does happen oftentimes inside of a wave 3 breakout, you'd be looking at about 2.5x. So this one is more of a long-term hold for me. All of these are going to be long-term games. All of these that I'm talking about today are ones I have positions in that I'm already long holding, because I do think that there's just a lot more upside potential, and they're strong fundamentally backed coins. When we're seeing Metis breakout, we're seeing Arbitrum, we've seen Optimism, and all of these other layer 2s. This one is one that has a very obvious accumulation. It just hasn't quite broken out yet. So I definitely think you should watch out for FrackShares. Now, next up is going to be Tau or BitTensor. Now, this is wrapped Tau on the ETH chain, and the reason we're looking at this one is just because of the fact we can actually, chart it. So when we're looking at this, it's easier to view the chart over here, and the only way we can do that is looking at the wrap token. Now, we've had this big breakout. This was the prior all-time high right here, and we saw this big breakout to the upside into a new all-time high. We peaked at a little over $400, and then we saw this short-term correction back down. Now, when I look at this, I see a couple scenarios. Scenario 1 is that this ends up being a short-term ABC correction, and we're about to start that next leg up into this cycle. This short-term move right here is actually this short-term move is a ABC, and we're about to see one more low that comes back down to retest that prior high. I wouldn't be surprised to see either or scenario. Obviously, this would be the bearish scenario, but I still think that it's going to be bullish, considering we're going to be retesting that prior all-time high of the cycle, which is most likely, in my opinion, going to produce some sort of buyback where we will reverse off that level. So looking in the short term, as long as we're holding this prior high, this resistance level that we just broke from, I do believe that we'll get continuation up. However, if the price falls, we become resistance again, I think that we're going to end up seeing one more low, and that's how it's going to end up playing out. So big picture, this is one of the better projects that you can buy when you're looking at AI tokens, and I think it only has like 500 million total market cap, so it's, a little bit higher up there in comparison with some cryptos, but I don't think that that's, super overvalued compared to what we're going to see on this project long term. I really wouldn't be surprised to see this do a 10x long term, and to do a 50 billion market cap would be 100x from this point. And even though that seems really crazy, that is something we have seen in prior cycles with altcoins. And if this is the institutional cycle, there's going to be a lot of altcoins sitting at $500 million total market cap that will do a 100x from that point. It's just that, the likelihood of that happening becomes very minimal because it has to have so much more money come into it for that to make sense. However, it will happen. And if this is the most adopted cycle, like I believe we are going to end up seeing, I think it's going to happen a lot more frequent than people will actually expect. So watch out for this one. It's probably my favorite AI crypto in the market. So if you're looking to position yourself inside of a good project fundamentally in that narrative, look no further than BitTensor. Now next up is going to be Magic or Treasure DAO. This one is another one we've been covering a lot recently, mainly because we are perfectly retesting this trend line. So at the point of me making my video, we were sitting right here. So anybody that bought is in a little bit of profit, but this thing hasn't really ran very hard yet. We've just been making the first little higher highs and higher lows on the new ascending support. So once this thing starts breaking out, I think that we're going to come all the way up to the top of this lower high, being just under $4. One of the most bullish Arbitrum altcoins in the market is Magic, and it's really held some of the better support. Throughout the accumulation right here, we always maintained higher highs. We never made a lower low during the FTX collapse. We held support, and the lowest low was actually in June. So a lot of the Arbitrum altcoins actually have maintained better support than a lot of the different altcoins inside of the market. And then when we ended up making this first little breakout, this one ended up running harder than many of the other altcoins inside of the Arbitrum ecosystem. So when we came all the way back down and fully retraced that move for the most part, that was where we saw a huge opportunity to get back in at a really undervalued level. Considering if we're looking at how much value OpenSea, the NFT marketplace, generated in the last cycle, you got to expect that this one is going to be able to generate even more because this actually has, scalable features where we could actually transfer NFTs, buy and sell and trade them on a market, and it's not going to cost $50 in a transaction fee. That's the issue with OpenSea. It's the reason I think that they're going to end up fading out if they can't get a hold of the gas fee issue. And that's why the real value proposition comes into some of these altcoins. Now, with Magic, they're really the leader of the altcoin, NFT, GameFi, all of that type of stuff, all in one universal platform inside of the Arbitrum ecosystem. And even though it's got $312 million total market cap, I still think that this one could most definitely see 100x, but I would put it in the 50x range, a lot more like realistic. And the same thing would go for BitTensor. Those are probably in the 50x range, but for those to go to 100x would not even slightly surprise me. It's just the fact that we're at the low point of this cycle, so the best thing that we can do is just look to hold long term, considering these are the ones I believe are going to gain a lot of adoption. And really all we can do right now is look to hold and strengthen our positions before the narratives start to kick off, because that's where we really want to be looking to have all of our positions ready, because it's once that happens that these things start to fly. And this is most likely going to be how we end up setting up for a new all-time high breakout. So even if you feel like you're missing out because it's taking off without you, I still think the amount of upside potential we see long term with this project is just going to be so immense that it's going to be one of the better ones we can look to hold long term. Now next up is one we talked about in yesterday's video, and that is going to be Stargate Finance. I just really like the chart setup that we're seeing right here. Between this massive parabolic move that we saw in the prior bull run, we fully retraced that, and we've just been doing this big sort of sideways accumulation. Nothing crazy has really happened in any sort of way. It's just been, higher highs and higher lows, but we've pretty much just trended sideways. The volatility is almost obsolete throughout this entire consolidation, yet the volume is really solid. We see a significant amount of volume inside of this, a lot more sustainable volume than what we saw in the bull market. And if we're looking at just us going back to the prior all-time high of that cycle, you're looking at about a 6x, which isn't that crazy. But these are the type of markets that I think that once they just start breaking out, they're just going to go so parabolic really quickly. And, from us to go from here to that 6x mark, I don't think that it's going to take a lot of time. The length of time happens throughout here. That's the accumulation. And I do think that we're at the point of leaving this accumulation, considering all we have here is our first wave 1 impulse, wave 2 correction, and then we're beginning a much bigger sort of impulse like this, right? Now, this most recent move right here was just a subwave of this much bigger impulse, and that's what I think is going to be playing out next. So I'm not trying to give us a specific price point, because for me, I'm holding this into a new all-time high. I believe that this is one of the most fundamentally strong cryptos in the market, being a cross-chain bridge, and I do believe that we're going to see so much money coming into the market, and they're going to need to be able to bridge, and these are going to be the projects that they end up flocking to. So Stargate is built on Layer 0. Layer 0 is a big narrative that will come out this year. I think a lot of people are going to be talking about that, and it's best best to get the positions inside of the cryptos built on that before the launch, because that's when the price discovery really starts to take place. Now, next up is going to be NXRA, or Alliance Block, Nexera. Now, these guys actually had a big hack and a lot of their tokens and liquidity was stolen, so they ended up doing this new token. But I still believe that this is one of the most fundamentally strong projects that you can hold. Now, what this project does is it basically tokenizes real world value and assets. So one of the biggest narratives that you're going to be wanting to research now going into this next cycle is going to be RWAs. And you can search this on Twitter, hashtag RWA or RWA crypto, and you'll see a number of people talking about this narrative and coins attached to that narrative. So what we're talking about here is the whole point of blockchain is to ultimately tokenize all assets. So like our cars, any sort of government information, any sort of documentation, any sort of personal information, any sort of real estate, whatever it is, all of this is going to have to be tokenized. And it's going to be these sort of RWA cryptos that provide the platform for us to actually do that. So this is going to be one of the leaders in the market, and it only has a little over $113 million total market cap. So with it currently just sitting on top of those prior all-time highs, I'm kind of expecting that this is about to go into price discovery. We've got good volume, really sustainable volume, and we've been holding the breakout of this prior high for quite a while, basically a month at this point, or actually a couple months, 2-3 months at this point. So once the breakout ensues, I honestly think it's going to take off pretty quickly, and these guys have already established themselves as being one of the leaders inside of the RWA narrative. So look no further than NXRA if you're looking for how to position yourself in a solid project to hold long term. Next up is going to be Lyra Finance. Now, Lyra is an options market built on Ethereum. Obviously, we know the issues with Ethereum, but I still think that this one is going to be doing really well long term, and I like the chart setup as it stands right now. Now, all we've really done is completed one impulse, and that was what we saw in June. When the market bottomed in June, like ETH and many of the arbitral altcoins, this one also did the same thing. Now, even though we've made 2 different attempts at a breakdown of that level, we've always held it. The only difference here is the fact that all we really went for after the top of this move in August of 2022 was this big elongated ABC correction. All of this is a big ABC. So when I'm looking at this, we broke out of all descending resistance of our bear market. That took place here in summer into the August timeframes when we topped. Then we made this big A wave, a B wave that technically made a new high above, which is known as an expanded flat, where it does this big sort of breakout. It's a fake breakout. And then we ended up making another wave C all the way back down. So with this volume breakout that we're seeing right here, this is the first impulse of the new cycle. This is our wave 1 and technically this is our wave 1 and wave 2. And so this is our new subwave count, and it's looking like we're about to be getting a much bigger breakout right here. Seeing this volume coming in here, it tells me that there's a lot of momentum taking place inside of this market, and we're kind of in this first little leg up before we start that next breakout. And all we really have to do is get above this range high right here, which is the same level that we pretty much wicked to when this giant whale market bought all of this right here. Once we get above that, I think that the market's just going to absolutely fly. It's once we get above this level, which is the top of our range high from August, the top of our range high from the top of wave B, and it's also the resistance of this wick that we recently made on the breakout. Once we get above that at 25 cents, I think that this thing's going to be going into a new all-time high, and it's going to take off and catch a lot of people by surprise, considering the total market cap is only 87 million. With a lot more money coming into DeFi this cycle with institutions, I don't think you can really go wrong positioning yourself in a lot of different DeFi altcoins. And this one is going to be pretty much the leader in the options market on Ethereum. So watch out for Lyra. I think it's going to do really well. Now, next up is going to be Teus Finance. Teus is going to be a GMX hard fork, and GMX is one of my favorite cryptos built on the Arbitrum ecosystem or chain. Now, when we're looking at this, I've been covering it quite a lot recently, and it's because all we're doing is pretty much working on a breakout of this entire range. This is over 600 days, and as we're seeing Metis breaking out, Metis is currently testing their sequencer, and as they're testing their sequencer, you can actually go and use all of these early chains that are built on it. GMX is one of those, and you can actually get qualified for a potential airdrop that's going to be launching when Metis goes fully live. Now, with this, I think that all of these projects are so well positioned because they only have 6 million, or this one only has 6 million total market cap. They're also going to be receiving tens of millions of dollars in Midas tokens themselves in the grants that are going to be distributed back into the ecosystem, which is the real reason why Midas and the whole ecosystem is primed for explosive growth. As they're just basically going to be injecting all of this new money and value inside of the market, all of these tokens are worth almost nothing. So all of this is going to bolster all of their liquidity issues that they may have. It's going to be able to fix any sort of yield issues. They're going to be able to provide more yield. A lot of them don't have any issues. They just are going to be able to get more value unlocked because of these grants. So I don't think you should go wrong focusing in on a lot of Midas altcoins. They're going to definitely be some of the better performing alts over the cycle. And it only has 6 million total market cap. GMX is worth like 400 million, maybe even 500 million total market cap. So, I mean, just for this to go to that level, you're already looking at 100x and more. So don't look any further than Teus if you're looking for something that's going to be one of the best leaders in the Midas ecosystem. And with us just sitting on the support, we're kind of at the last line before, in my opinion, we do get that breakout. And we're probably going to run all the way back up to probably $3.50. And we could even go much higher. It's impossible to predict these things. I'm telling you guys right now that as we're breaking out of the range, you want to have the position in play now before everything goes, because once things go, we want to do our part by just looking to hold the whole cycle, and that's it. Now, next up is going to be Hermes. This one is going to be another one of the top premier DeFi protocols built in the Midas ecosystem. I've talked about Maya DAO, and that's another part of this. Both of these are kind of inside of the same, both of these are in the same ecosystem. But with this one, I think that this actually has a little bit of a better chart, and it has better volume. It's got a better fundamental reason for why it's going to perform well. And I think that that's what we're going to be watching right now. Now, so far we've made 2 or 3 lower highs. If we do make a retest of this trend line, we would make, you know, a lower low right in here. So just be aware of that. But if we get a lower low, I'm most definitely going to be buying some more. We'd probably be coming back down to about 4 cents before reversing and then going into that new breakout. Because all we've done with this most recent move, we're not even into a new all-time high. We've just broken from descending resistance of our bear market, but we have more volume coming in on this breakout than we've seen even in the cycle top. So that tells me that we have a new cycle starting. We're most definitely about to be breaking out in a big way, and we want to just be focusing in on this. If you guys have bought this and you are at a loss, understand that you might end up seeing a lower low form in here. But at the end of the day, you know, I don't think it's a big deal if you just hold through that, considering I still think we're going to reverse and you'll be in profit. I wouldn't get too worried about trying to trade in and out, trying to be too worried about the short-term volatility. If we get a lower low, buy the dip if you can. If you can't, just look to hold long-term. It really doesn't matter that much. The markets are going to be showing 30, 40, 50+% moves, sometimes in the matter of hours. When we're talking low caps like this, don't get worked up about the short-term price. They're going to work themselves out long-term. Now, next up is going to be Ink. This one is going to be a reward token that's built on the Pulse chain network. So when I was looking at this, it was actually because of Corey Costa. I was on his podcast yesterday, and somebody asked me to actually do some TA on this, and I think that this looks absolutely phenomenal. Now, even though we had such an absolutely massive bear market, fully retraced the beginning of the cycle, you got to keep in mind that this was being farmed and dumped in the bear market as there was already liquidity issues taking place. So everybody was already taking profits. Everybody was covering leverage positions, trying to, you know, save themselves from financial death and ruin. So I think that that really enhanced this entire sell-off. But when we're seeing more volume coming in here at the beginning of this breakout than what we even saw at the cycle top, that tells me that there's going to be a new cycle forming. And the upside potential with this, even if you bought the top and we corrected right here, just to the prior all-time highs, you're looking at like 41x. So I think that there's still an immense amount of upside potential with this. And if we do end up getting a correction in here, even if we come up a little higher, maybe we make one more high. But if we get a correction that comes back down to retest this prior level as support, get this big support and resistance flip, you guys definitely want to be watching this because I'm going to be buying some. I haven't bought anything yet. Just be warned. This is the one altcoin on the entire list today that I don't own any exposure to, but I do want to get exposure to this. It's one that I am actually watching and looking to trade, but I want to see us correct right here. I want to see us come back down, retest this level at like $1, because if we were to do that, I think that we're going to be setting ourselves in for a much bigger reversal back up. And the next leg up is going to be taking us upwards of like $8.50, probably to the top of this lower high. And from like $1 approximately, you're looking at like 7.5x approximately. So I think this has a lot of upside. And if we ran all the way to the prior all-time highs from that dollar level, you'd be talking like 60x or more. So definitely be watching out for Ink. I think it has a lot of upside potential regardless of how sketchy the sell-off was. Now, the final one on today's list is going to be Hamachi Finance. This one is one of my favorite Arbitrum altcoins, and I think that this has so much upside potential long term, considering the market cap is tiny, considering they just upgraded their tokenomics, and that's going to be able to provide more rewards to token holders long term. So basically, by just holding Hamachi Finance, you get rewards earned directly to your wallet. What that means is this is a reflection token, so there's a buy and sell tax. So with that buy and sell tax, a certain amount of that actually goes back into farming Arbitrum altcoins, and then the rewards are paid back to the token holders themselves. You don't have to stake it, you don't have to do anything besides hold the token in your wallet, and you're automatically going to be earning rewards. And it's not rewards paid out in more of this token, it's rewards paid out in some of the better Arbitrum tokens on the whole ecosystem. So it's a way that you can get a significant amount of exposure because it's a low cap crypto, but when the market starts running, because there's so much more volume picking up, you're actually earning direct exposure to a number of different Arbitrum altcoins. I generated $30,000 worth of Arbitrum token rewards, paid out in a number of different tokens that went up even more in value from that point. And I only started with an $1,800 investment, right? And we're not really up that much from the beginning of where that was. So when we're talking about how much more upside this has, I think that there's going to be way more upside because they ended up taking half of the pre-sale tokens that all of the people that bought the pre-sale had, and instead of giving them back to the token holders and letting them just dump on the market, they ended up voting to put those back inside of the liquidity pool to provide more rewards for everybody. So when they did that, we ended up seeing the market start breaking out even more. A lot of people are getting bullish on this because they realize that they can generate even more rewards than what we saw in the first run up. So I think that we're probably going to make more long-term profit with this. And if this one goes into a new all-time high from where we're at right now, you're talking 23x just to the prior all-time high, and if you're talking the mid-range, you're looking at like 6.5x. So I think that this one most definitely will go into a new cycle. It's got great volume coming in here on these most recent breakouts, and that tells me that there still is a lot of demand for this project, even though we saw such a gnarly bear market. The bear market was mainly caused because there was so much pre-sellers dumping on the market. So when they've refactored and changed their tokenomics and upgraded them and gave all of those tokens back to the reward pool, it actually benefited all of the other token holders that didn't buy the pre-sale the most. All the people that bought the pre-sale actually lost half their tokens. So overall, I think that this one is proving to be one of the better projects you can hold long term. As they launch new tokens cross-chain, you're going to get airdrops as well. So at 2 mil market cap, I don't really think you can go wrong. Anyways, guys, this is my favorite list of altcoins. If you guys did find value in this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these updates. If you guys want to join the Discord server, see any sort of signals, all of these cryptos have been a prior signal in my Discord server that we're either in profit on or pretty much at the same level at break even. But every one of these have ran pretty hard from our signals, and I think that there's a lot more upside potential from here. If you guys do want to end up seeing how I invest and how I'm positioning myself long term in the markets, you definitely got to join inside of my private Discord server because that's where I post all of the trades and anything I'm doing with my money long term, even if I moved outside of crypto. So if you guys want to join that private group, you have to sign up on my website. The way you would find that is linked in the description of this video. That's how you're going to get access to my website. Check it out. From there, you're going to be able to find my private group on Discord. With that being said, guys, thank you all so much for the support. Wanted to give you guys a few altcoins that I think are going to take off in a big way. We can all make some good profit on, and then, ultimately make all of this profit together. That's my ultimate goal long term. Thank you guys so much. And with that being said, I'll catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.